all the games I used to play in my younger, wilder days. The game of clubs and teas had never crossed my mind. But after some discussion with my closest, dearest friends, I decided...
What's up, guys? Welcome into a new episode of the Turn Fantasy Golf Pod. I am Joe Nosley, and I'm here solo tonight. AP is in the mountains with no Wi-Fi. No Spencer. It was unavailable, so you get me this week, guys. It's good to be back with you. We missed last week for the Olympics. Kind of took a little brief break. So happy to be back with you this week for the WGC Fedex St. Jude Invitational. That is definitely a mouthful. Xander Schauffele took on the gold medal last week in Tokyo. A lot of us expected big things from Xander this year. Thought maybe the breakthrough would come in a major. Fell short in those, but did grab the gold medal. Not sure where we rank that right now. Only the second time that golf's been played kind of in modern day Olympics, so don't really know where we want to rank that, where we want to put it. Obviously a big win. Huge for Xander. Anytime, you're talking about the Olympics, you're talking about a gold medal, you're talking about a huge accomplishment for any athlete, especially in golf. So hats off to Xander. Don't think it's quite at that major championship level yet. Maybe like a players, kind of seems right when we're talking in golf terms, but certainly overall globally, from top to bottom, the Olympics are huge and a huge win for Xander. So maybe he can springboard off that and grab that first major victory next year in 2022. Huge week for kind of PGA entertainment. Our boy Bagels, obviously a huge Xander fan, so congrats Bagels. And also, if you guys listen to the Shotgun Start podcast, they've had a ton of fun with Rory Sabatini, guys, for several years. And the boy from Bratislava brought home the silver, defected over from South Africa to Slovakia. And that move worked out well for Rory. It was insane. He shot a final round 61 to take home the silver. And then we had a 7-way playoff for the bronze with CT Pan taking that home. Edging out a bunch of really stars there fighting for that bronze medal, including Colin Morikawa and Rory McIlroy. Some guys we'll see this week. That's something we'll get into as we move on to the WGC Fedex is, how will the fatigue factor impact these guys that did play in Tokyo last week. But really cool. I love that golf is in the Olympics. It's just kind of to the point where it's, so new that we don't really know where to rank it as an accomplishment. It only comes around once every 4 years. So guys, that take home the gold obviously have to be in good form at that time. It's not an annual event. So just something different, cool. I'm sure it's really going to help grow the game globally. You have to figure in some of these smaller countries. So really glad that golf's in the Olympics and really happy to see Xander take that home. But moving on to this week, we're in Memphis. We're in my home state of Tennessee. TPC South win for the WGC Fedex St. Jude. This was formerly just a kind of a regular tour event held for many years on this golf course out in Memphis. But in 2019, the powers that be decided it was a WGC event. So be careful when you're doing some course history research because a lot of places import the history from the WGC Bridgestone. So kind of make sure and be careful when you're looking into course history this week. You want to look for the FedEx St. Jude Invitational numbers prior to 2019 and make sure you're not getting the Bridgestone numbers. Justin Thomas won this tournament last year. Brooks Koepka in 2019. Those are the two playings since it did become a WGC event. Obviously, when we're talking about WGC fields, we're talking about elite players, no cut format, and smaller fields. So that's something we'll want to take into account when building our rosters this week. A little bit about the golf course, 7,244 yards, par 70, Bermuda greens. Ron Pritchard's the architect. A lot of dog legs on this course. A lot of precision's required. Anytime we're talking about a par 70, obviously we want to focus in on par 4 scoring. A lot of mid irons this week. We've seen some wedge fests here lately on the PGA Tour, the John Deere Classic, the Rocket Mortgage, 3M. Those kind of tournaments come to mind, and I think we're going to focus in a little bit more on mid irons. That 150 to 200 proximity, a little bit of 125 to 150. But stroke gained approach are obviously always very important in PGA DFS. It's a stat we weigh heavily each week. So that's something we're going to really zero in, especially here. Check out those mid-iron players, guys that are strong from kind of that 150 to 200 yard range. That's what I'll be targeting this week as we get into the salary scale. Before we do, I want to encourage you guys to go check out rotoballer.com. It's kind of my home site over there. It's where you can find all my articles every week. Josh Bennett does an amazing course breakdown. If you do want to dive a little bit deeper into TPC Southwind, you can go over there and check that out. We got Andy Lack on board. He's doing a PGA DFS preview each week. That's up already this week. My guy Spencer Aguiar, one of the best in the business, guys, does a Vegas report, just repeatedly pounds winners. So I really want to urge you to go sign up for our premium package over there at rotoballer.com. You can use promo code NICE, NICE, and get a discount over there. And we also have tons of free content. So we hope you go check that out. Moving on into the salary scale, we're going to just try to move the show along this week. We'll dive right into DraftKings. Kind of a surprising name up at the top of the board, Colin Morikawa. 11K, the only player at 11K or higher this week. Brand new major champion. Obviously won the Open a few weeks ago. And, it's tough to argue with Morikawa's placement up here, even though I'll admit when I first opened DraftKings up earlier today, was a little bit shocked to see Colin Morikawa up there. We're used to the usual suspects for, it seems like, almost years. We've seen DJ, Rory, JT, Bryson, these guys up at the top of the board. So to open up the DraftKings app and see Morikawa sitting on the top of the board was kind of shocking, honestly, even though it's well-deserved and tough to argue with. The guy is a little bit different. That's really the best way I know to say it. Maintained for years, really since he's come on the PGA Tour, that he had the potential to be a generational type of talent, and with two major championships already under his belt, he's certainly headed in that direction. I think he's the best iron player we've seen since Tiger Woods, and his ball striking ability is going to repeatedly put him in the mix to win golf tournaments, guys. And when he putts decently, much less well, he's going to be fighting for victories. So he's a guy that we pretty much have to take into account every single week that he's teeing it up. If he's in the field with his iron play, he's a legitimate contender. So had a T20 in this event last year on this golf course, and man, it seems to be right down his alley. Precision's required, accuracy off the tee, great approach play. So Colin Morikawa certainly deserves consideration there at 11K at the top of the board. Xander, dropped down to Xander at 10-8, coming in off a huge emotional victory. You kind of wonder how that's going to affect his play this week. The fatigue factor, will there be an emotional letdown after that huge win, taking on the gold medal? It's a concern for me at this price tag. Has played well here before, had a T6 here last year, had a T27 in 2019. And Xander's the type of guy that, pretty much fits any type of golf course. So, under normal circumstances, would be really interested in Xander here. But I am a little concerned with him coming off the huge win in Tokyo last week. As we get down to Brooks Koepka 10-6. Talk about a course history beast. Really the first play that pops completely off the board. Had a T2 here last year. Was in this thing right down to the wire. And won this golf tournament in 2019. Brooks really does love this golf course. Has played well here even before it was a WGC event. Had a T2 here in 2016 and a T3 back in 2015. So he's familiar with this golf course and he likes this golf course. And he comes in playing extremely well. Brooks kind of gets painted as a bomber. And that's obviously because he hits the ball so long off the tee, but it's really not fair to him because when he's playing well, it's based on his iron play, and his approach game's been on fire. Gained strokes on approach in each of his last 5 starts. That dates back to that runner-up finish at the PGA. Top 5 at the U.S. Open, top 5 at the Travelers, just missed the top 5 at the Open. And he's gaining an average of 3.2 strokes on approach over his last 5. We know Brooks is a big game hunter. There are times when we kind of want to steer clear of him in non-majors, but I'm willing to make an exception for this tournament because he has played so well here in the past. He elected not to tee it up last week, so he's coming in fresh, and you have to figure he's gearing up for the stretch run. And that's another thing to take into account, guys. It's been a very, very long golf season. I can personally attest to that. Doing this thing every single week since basically last June. But we're coming to the end. We've got this week the WGC, next week's the Wyndham, and then we're into the FedEx Cup playoffs. So this extremely long, jam-packed season is finally coming to an end. So we'll want to look at these guys motivation-wise, what they're playing for here over the next month or so. But Brooks, he's a player that we kind of always question his motivations outside of the majors. But I look for him to play well this week. I look for him to come in motivated. I think he's very comfortable on this golf course and the form's there in all the right areas. So Brooks certainly jumps out as probably my favorite play over 10K this week. Drop down to Jordan. We know he's playing extremely well. DJ has great course history here. Has won on this golf course twice prior to becoming a WGC event. Won here in 2018. The last year it was a regular tour event. He's played fine here in the 2 WGCs with a T20 and a T12. We thought maybe DJ was heading in the right direction, and then just another head scratching performance up in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago at the 3M. I know he torched me in a serious way there. So, maybe that's a little personal bias with DJ, but just hadn't seen himself this year. Just hadn't been the Dustin Johnson that we seen closing out 2020 in such dominant fashion. We know he can flip the switch at any time, get things going. That factor's always there. A lot of win equity there with DJ. But for me, at this point in the week anyway, I'll probably be steering clear. Feel much better going with Brooks or up to Morikawa. And closing out the 10K range, we've got Rory coming in off just missing a bronze medal over in Tokyo. And man, drove the ball beautifully really all week over in Tokyo. But it's just kind of been the same story that we've seen all year. Just can't seem to put everything together. Had a really deep run on this golf course in 2019. If we think back, kind of entered that final round that year, battling with Brooks, kind of a little showdown there between those two. Brooks came out on top. Rory settled for a T4. Obviously Rory is the type of player that can show up any week and win any golf tournament. We saw that back at the Wells Fargo a little earlier this year when he'd really been out of sorts and came up huge at Quail Hollow on a golf course where he's comfortable. So anything can happen, but we do have that kind of sputtering current form that he's in, not really firing on all cylinders, and he's also coming over from the Olympics. So, probably going to kind of take a back seat for me this week when building lineups. JT won this golf tournament last year. Had a T12 here in 2019, and unfortunately, since that Players win, when we felt like that was the first of many big wins coming this year, has been relatively quiet, especially for a player of his caliber. Hadn't had the putter going, hadn't had the irons going, certainly hadn't had them both going at the same time in any given week since that win at the Players. So, kind of similar to a Rory or a DJ. We know that talent's there. We know the ability's there, but the form just hadn't been there. So can certainly play well, lots of upside there. But maybe not the greatest form coming in this week. Victor Hovland was also over in Tokyo. We know what Vic's capable of. Love him as a player. Had a T59 here last year in his only start on this golf course. There's upside there. Another player that we feel like a big win is just around the bend. Won over in Europe there before the Open Championship. So Victor's certainly capable, but I don't know that he's a priority for me this week. A player that is a priority, that is on fire, but has failed to get in the winner's circle to this point this year, Louis Oosthuizen. The guy is playing out of his mind, killing it in majors, but just keeps coming up a little bit short. Very frustrating, for us that roster him. I'm sure very frustrating for Louis. A very likable guy, a guy you want to pull forward, and a guy you want to see do well. Just can't seem to get his arms on that trophy. But this golf course, basically like any golf course, suits his game very well. Louis has a T6 here last year, had a T20 here in 2019, and comes in with just fire form. So it's certainly a priority for me in this 9K range. I'm willing to continue riding this momentum, stick with Louis while he's hot. And, maybe like Xander last week, he keeps putting himself in position. Eventually, one of these things is going to go his way, and, he's going to grab a win at some point. But that is the only concern with Louis, kind of his inability to actually close out golf tournaments, but love him as a play this week, even at this 9.6K price tag. Bryson, don't know that the golf course is a great fit. Was forced to miss the Olympics after testing positive for COVID last week. So who knows where he is? A lot of things going on in his world right now. Parted ways with his longtime caddy several weeks ago, leading up to the Rocket Mortgage, and has looked out of sorts since. So I don't know that this, even in good form, I don't know that this is a great fit for Bryson at TPC Southwind. And I'll be skipping over him. The same can be said for Hideki, who it felt like had the weight of the world on his shoulders last week. Kind of, a huge win at the Masters, obviously, and wanted to bring home a medal in his home country last week, and was right there fighting. Struck the ball extremely well, but kind of the old story with Hideki. The putter just didn't get going. So it certainly has the ball striking ability to play well this week. But you do have to kind of wonder about his emotional state. After not being able to grab a medal last week, you have to figure that was, extremely taxing on him. We also have a COVID issue that he's battled, over the course of the last few weeks leading up to the Olympics. So, no Hideki for me this week. Cantlay's a nice player. Somebody we always kind of talk about, but has just been a little bit inconsistent for my taste here at 93, especially when we look at the guy below him. The guy with the best course history in this field, a 2-time winner on this golf course, and a runner-up last year, and that's Daniel Berger at 9,200. Sure, you'll hear a lot of people talk about him this week. Hard to ignore his course history. Won here back-to-back when this was just a regular tour event, and then, like I said, turned in the T2 last year on this golf course. It just suits him right down to the bone. Berger performs well on shorter golf courses. We saw him win at Pebble Beach earlier this year. Saw him win at Colonial last year. So, that's a nice fit. Accuracy off the tee, strong iron player. That's a nice fit. And, some guys are believers in course history. Some aren't. I do take it into account personally. And, Berger just likes this golf course, performs well on this golf course, and it's an excellent fit. So I'm sure he'll be very popular doing this on Monday night. Don't have ownership projections yet, but you have to figure he'll be one of, if not the most popular play on the board. But tough to argue with Daniel Berger, especially in single entry stuff, cash game type stuff, 3 max type stuff. I see no reason to go away from him, and in excellent form as well. So kind of checks all the boxes this week, with the only reason I can find to go against Berger being ownership reasons. Scotty Scheffler, a young player that's been very impressive, seems to come up big in big events. Had a T15 in this tournament last year, and seems to be coming on. Another guy. Seems like we continue to say it, that all these young guys have a big win in them, and Scotty Scheffler is another one that we almost know has a breakthrough coming at some point. I believe he can play well this week. Great all-around player. Maybe doesn't suit his strengths as well as some other layouts we see on the schedule. But I like Scotty Scheffler there, especially if, in GPPs you're looking to pivot away from Daniel Berger. Scheffler's interesting and certainly carries some upside there. So a very interesting GPP play there with Scotty Scheffler. Paul Casey, another guy that was over in Japan last week, came up short over there. Had a tremendous year. T67 and a T27 in this tournament over the last 2 years. So not the greatest track record at Southwind as of late, but we know he's a very capable player. Same can be said for Tony Finau, who maybe hadn't been himself lately. Looked a little bit better at the Open and the 3M, but still doesn't seem to be in that type of form we came to know there at the first of the year. Next kind of guy I'm putting a check mark beside of this week, Matt Fitzpatrick at 8,800. Good form, nice course fit. Anytime we come upon a course where distance isn't a prerequisite for success, Fitzpatrick pops in my head. So sure enough, T6 and a T4 in this event over the last 2 years. So it seems to be a really good fit for him. Very manageable golf course for him. Hit fairways, hit greens, make putts. That's the Matt Fitzpatrick formula. Look for him to play well this week. Patrick Reed has kind of been on a whirlwind. Got called in to replace DeChambeau in the Olympics. Flew over to Japan, went through all the COVID protocol, played over there. Now he's coming back. He's a gamer, but I don't know that I love Patrick Reed this week. Lowry, another Olympian that's played great golf lately. Had a T6 here last year, and I really like his form. I think you can give Shane Lowry a look. Webb Simpson below him has great course history. T12 and a runner-up finish here in his last 2 starts at TPC Southwind. He's a Southeast guy. He's very familiar with these types of golf courses. Can handle this well, but I don't love the form. Webb just hadn't seemed really right to me over the last month, 2 months. Did manage a top 20 at the Open. That's the best he's looked in a couple months. So, if you're not concerned about the recent form, the course history and the course fit would certainly point in Webb's direction. Another guy I'm looking at here in the eights, skipping over Neiman, is Abraham Answer. Had a T15 here last year, and we've seen him play extremely well this year. And this course is a great fit. Kind of echoing back to Matt Fitzpatrick. Not a long golf course. Demands a little bit more precision from these guys, and Answer certainly checks that box. We've seen him come close this year. Top 5 at the Travelers, made a really deep run there. Had a runner-up at the Wells Fargo, made a late run at the PGA Championship there in the final round. So, another guy that feels like he's coming, and he's a guy that I'll be looking at closely this week. As we move on down into the 7K range, things kind of, even though this is an elite field with a lot of names we know, it feels like there's a drop off here. But some good value down in the 7Ks. Willie Z, our boy Will Zalatoris, not sure what's up with him. Had to withdraw from the Open, injured his back there on a swing. We hadn't seen him since. So we don't really know what we're getting. If we're looking at this blindly, seems like a great fit for him with his ball striking. But also hadn't looked like the same player since that kind of magical run at the Masters. Played poorly at the U.S. Open, and as I mentioned, had the WD from the Open. So don't really know what we're getting with Willie Z there. Drop down to Harris English, who feels really underpriced to me here at 76. Doesn't have any recent history here, but has played well at this golf course in the past, back when it was just a regular tour event before it became a WGC event. Harris won this tournament back in 2013 and had a T10 here in 2017. So this is a guy that's coming in fire form, won the Travelers a few weeks ago, made a deep run at the U.S. Open, rested up last week, coming in ready to go with good course history. So, at 7,600, I imagine he'll be a popular play, but, it's a play I'm willing to make here at this price tag. Terrell Hatton sticks out at 7,400, but the course history isn't good and the recent form isn't good. So, I'd much rather pay a couple more $100 to get up to Harris English there in the mid sevens. Billy Horschel's a guy with great course history, horrible form. And that's kind of a recurring theme as we go down the salary scale. We'll see these guys, these either or guys, either bad current form or bad course history, good course history, bad form, just not everything all together. And Billy Horschel certainly checks that box, has played really well here over the course of his career. Most recently, T25 here last year, had a T9 in 2019. But he's a streaky guy. We know this. Those of us that play a lot of PGA DFS know this. Very streaky player, and he is cold right now. So, I think a lot of people will notice that course history, but I'm a little concerned with the form there with Billy Ho. Justin Rose, man, he's pretty much been off my radar basically all year. Poulter's an interesting play. This is the type of course where he can play well and has played well here in the past. Had an 8th place finish here in 2019. Had a T10 here in 2018. We know to kind of keep an eye out for him in Ryder Cup years. So Poulter closing out the 7K range is an interesting player. And as we get down the 6s, we can be aggressive this week, guys. It's a no-cut event. So certainly can take some shots down here if we want. looking for guys that can rack up birdies over 4 rounds. Matthew Wolff comes to mind if we are taking that angle. As far as explosive guys, birdie makers, type of guy that will keep firing. If you're not really too worried about finishing position, does have a top 25 on his resume here back in 2019. Didn't play well last year, had a T49, but we've seen some explosive stretches from him since he returned to golf at the U.S. Open. That U.S. Open performance was really unbelievable. And a lot of people jumped on him at the Rocket and the 3M courses where he had good course history. But he's an explosive guy. Same can be said for a guy like Kevin Kisner, who does it in a different way than Matthew Wolff, but certainly has the ability to go low. This is a course where he can compete with the Bombers. Had a T25 here last year, a T27 back in 2019. Really headed into the Open with some trending form. Struggled a little bit over there, but I think Kisner's an interesting play here at 6,800. A guy that I'll give some serious consideration to. Cameron Champ coming off the win. Doesn't seem to be a great fit for him here, but did log a T25 here last year. And, going forward, guys, he's just one of those players that we kind of have to know in the back of our minds is going to pop up a couple times a year when things are going well. He hits the ball so long, such an advantage, kind of right out of the gate that, he's going to catch a hot putter a couple 3 times a year and be in the mix and, can win golf tournaments. Will he carry that form over this week? Remains to be seen. But at 6,700, I think a lot of people will be giving him a look down there just because of the explosive upside that he does have. If you want to get a little crazy this week, get a little squirrely, you got Philly Mick down there at 6,600. Had a T2 here last year and has played really well throughout his career on this golf course back when this was just the St. Jude Invitational. So, if you're shopping, you're feeling a little frisky, you're in GPPs, there's probably worse dart throws out there than Philly Mick. Robert McIntyre's a guy. Some might be surprised to see him down here at this price. He's played really well in major championships, played well in the Open. I believe made the cut in all 4 majors this year, played well. But hasn't translated that success to kind of regular type events in the U.S. Is familiar with this course, played here last year, had a T59. Bobby Mack's a talented young player. I think a guy you can give a look to. Then we're getting down into competent players, veterans. Westwood, a former winner here from way back in the day. Ryan Palmer had a T15 here last year. He's been off the radar. Stuart Sink, who knows what happened over at the Open. Kevin Na, I never play. You guys know this. Same can be said for Lucas Glover. The John Deere was not a good week for me. You can probably figure that out by how those two did. Garrett Higo is an interesting play at 6,300. Almost Cameron Champ-like, and that it feels like he can explode at any time. We've seen him log some wins over in Europe, one over here earlier this year at the Palmetto. So, he's a player that's very dangerous at that price tag. And then let's talk about our boy at 6K, Wilco Nienauber, the long header, hits it longer than Bryson. I really hope they get paired together just so he can kind of shatter Bryson's ego a little bit. The kid's supernaturally long. It's really unbelievable. So at 6K, if you want to take a flyer, you can give Wilco a look. That took us through the salary scale, guys. Nothing fancy this week. Just me here with you. Appreciate you being with us. Hope you'll check out our YouTube channel. Check out our Apple Podcast channel, Spotify. Like and subscribe on there. It really does help us a lot. Normally the shows are a little more fun when AP's here with us. But wanted to talk to you guys this week. Good to talk to you. Didn't get a chance to last week. I actually had Spencer sit in for me at the 3M, so hadn't got to talk to you guys in a while, and really glad to be back with you. Looking forward to finishing up the year strong. But now that we're at the end of the show, we're going to wrap things up. Not dilly-dally around this week, and we're going to go darts and hearts. AP's favorite segment of the show. I know a lot of you guys enjoy our darts and hearts. As usual, I haven't given a lot of thought to who I'm going with, so I'll toss out dart play. Let's go Kiz. Let's go Kevin Kisner, a little sub 7K play. Like the form he's shown over the past month. I think he can compete here. So I'm gonna toss out the Kiz. Let's see if the Kiz gets lit this week. My heart goes up top, and maybe it's just, this is a true heart play. Maybe it's just a guy that I really want to see get a victory before the year's out, and that's Louis Oosthuizen. Maybe he'll get there. Maybe this is the week. Xander broke through last week after kind of a lengthy drought. So maybe it's time for Louis to take one down. Was extremely happy to see Morikawa get a win at the Open. I love him. One of my favorite young players. But kind of heart-wrenching for Louis. So would love to see him, end his year on a good note. Get that elusive win in America. So I'm going heart play Louis this week. Thank you guys so much. Hope you enjoy the WGC Fedex St. Jude Invitational. As I mentioned, visit rotoballer.com. Use promo code NICE over there for a discount, and check out all the places where you can find us. We hope you'll like and subscribe. Helps us out, and we look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks, guys.
I've already hit 3 in the lake. It's gonna drive